All right, everyone, the Truckers for Trump thing seems to actually be gaining some steam. I might be wrong. It might actually have a meaningful impact in New York City on the availability of certain foods and services, and that would be pretty bad. If you've ever been to New York City, you know it's already congested. If the truckers decide to go through the city or something like that and slow down traffic at rush hour, New Yorkers, they're going to get mad really fucking quickly. It looks like a substantial number of truckers are going to refuse to actually ship goods into or out from New York City. And part of it is several of them were complaining, like, have you ever tried to bring a big rig into New York City? Fuck that shit. And I thought that that was very, very funny. I can imagine, based on my limited experience there, of course I went through on Greyhound, I've been there a couple of times, I can imagine that would be a difficult issue. Don't even think you can get a truck into Manhattan, can you? Could those roads even support a truck? I don't know how you'd make the fucking turns with the narrowness of some of the side streets, I guess. You know, if you're on one of the main avenues, it might be not that big a problem, but take you 4 or 5 hours to get from one end of Manhattan to the other. I've had that experience before. You could snarl things up real good, though, because New York City is a big, big city. So if you were to reduce the amount of food coming in by, let's say, just 20%, so only a fifth of the truckers decide, hey, Engeron's verdict is bullshit, we're going to do some activism here, we're not going to take these jobs, and there won't be enough truckers to move the product. And meanwhile, you have less outflow, so businesses in New York that are manufacturing things, so factories and shit, etc. There are a lot of jewelers that cut gems there and ship the product out. Let's say that they're waiting for weeks to get their product shipped, and things are building up, and it's sort of like the port shortages that you saw during the lockdowner period, or with Joe Biden's bullshit early on in his first year of his presidency. What do you think happens in New York City when the food becomes scarce? When you know you don't have enough, the restaurants, you know, the restaurant had to take half of its menu off. Says, I'm sorry, we don't have any tomatoes right now. You're gonna have to wait until next week for your gazpacho. New Yorkers will not react kindly to that. Now, the first wave of reaction, assuming that this goes well, so enough truckers join them to have a demonstrable, measurable impact on the availability of shit in New York and the outflow of goods from New York. Let's say that that occurs. The first wave of anger, because New York City is overrun with leftoids, will be anger at Trump. It won't be anger at Engeron. It'll be anger at Trump. As things drag on and the siege of New York continues, and by the way, people could do other forms of activism, I'll say no more on a YouTube video, for legal reasons. You know, you don't want no problems, because then you can't speak your mind to 500,000 people and be a little bit of a problem. By the way, join me on New Tech, links in the description, where I can speak more freely, especially during the live streams that I do as Rumble exclusives at this point occasionally. I've experimented with that. I'll be trying their studio out probably this week as well. I generally use StreamYard. First, they'll be angry at Trump and his fans. As time goes on, though, they will begin to say, okay, well, you know, we're going to have to give in because I need my avocado toast. I need my bagels. Fuck, if there's a bagel shortage in New York City, you know what happens? Fucking riots, probably. I'm being slightly hyperbolic, but it's an amusing scenario. The lack of the lack of cream cheese caused New York City to be engulfed in street-to-street combat, something like that. We're going to wait and see, though, how many truckers join in on the basic premise. It's going to be interesting to see. I don't know what the proportion will be. At first, I was like, okay, this is going to be fairly limited. It's not going to be a terribly meaningful thing. The number of trucks going in and out, you'd need a shit ton of them to join you. But it sounds like the scuttlebutt behind the scenes is more like, hey, if I don't bring stuff into New York City, if I don't take that hauling job, I can just haul a different load. I can haul to Boston. I can haul to Pennsylvania or something like that. The fuck should I feel compelled to take a load into New York City when I don't support them? It's hellish anyway to try to get the truck in there and offload it and shit and load up and do the next haul. So why would I want to? What incentive is there to even bother? If that indeed is the prevailing mentality among, again, even a fairly small minority of truckers, things will shit will hit the fan. You don't need that much of a reduction in the flow of goods, by the way, to snarl up a city, especially one that already has preeminent transport problems. The reason why is because, believe it or not, you don't actually have a huge amount of excess going in or out of most of these cities. You've got to get raw goods in there. They get processed in New York City, then they have to be shipped back out, sometimes by sea, sometimes by truck, etc., but sometimes by rail. It kind of depends. And the only way they can really compensate for this is by dedicating more rail service to industrial transport or something. The logistics involved, do you really think the current New York City leadership can compensate for that and not take 6 months or so to do it? Meanwhile, New Yorkers, again, they might not have their avocado toast today. They might not have their espresso or something like that. They'd be fucked. And Eric Adams is probably sweating right now saying, oh, I really hope that this turns out to be a dud. As we have seen, though, with Bud Light and some of the other companies that have been boycotted successfully over the last roughly year and a half, conservatives, or I would say anti-leftists, because I can't participate in a New York City boycott because I'm not a trucker, number one, and I don't want to go to New York City, number two. I don't understand people that go there for tourism other than, hey, it's a big city. All right, it's a block of concrete and steel. Not my bag. The only good part of it's Central Park, and that's probably overrun with opioid addicts at this point. It's probably needles everywhere again, like back in the 70s. They had it cleaned up under Giuliani, and now they're throwing him under the bus, and not without good reason. Shit. You're a politician that actually did something successful? You're not a very good Republican, so we're punishing you. Should have put a D after your name, Rudy. Then you would have been left alone, I fucking guarantee it. And you're philandering. Yeah, my tits. I claims my tits. Come here, big tits. These are my tits, you understand? One of the creepiest little monologues ever, actually, and I believe that it's fully truthful. Yeah, Rudy Giuliani likes big tits. Anyway, we'll get past Rudy Giuliani's titty fantasies and talk about Nikki Haley's pussy some more. Oh no, wait, we should probably talk about the news instead. This is going to be a repeat fixture on the channel, by the way. I'm going to disgust people as much as possible because it's hilarious. Truckers for Trump, therefore, might be considerably bigger than I expected. At first, it was like, okay, you got a couple people who've made YouTube videos. One of them is claiming that he talked to like 10 other truckers and they're going to say the same thing. But now that it has mainstream news coverage, and the liberals are like, oh my god, there's these terrible extremists. How dare they stand against the court's verdict? But you're still reporting on it, which means that more truckers are going to find out that this is an organized thing, and some of them might be inclined to go along with it. Truckers don't tend to be the group of people you would associate with leftoidism. The kind of person drawn to that line of work, and they've done studies on this repeatedly, studies and polls. There is a big differential in the political leanings generally, both partisan and ideological in general, single issue, multi-issue, doesn't matter, between people in different forms of employ. Truckers and oil rig workers and coal miners and people like that tend not to be Democrats, and they tend not to be leftists, and they tend not to be liberal in their views. It's extremely lopsided. It's like people who are social workers or shrinks. They tend to be liberal in nature, because they're screwed up a little bit. Never go to a psychiatrist. They're all retards, basically. Here's why your feelings are invalid, why you are wrong, and here's some pills, so fucking take them. You're delusional. Oh, okay. Why? Oh, because this book from Sigmund Freud tells you to. Not my bag. I think that head shrinking is a bad thing that's best relegated to the primitive tribes of yesteryear. And shrunken heads are pretty cool and shit like that, but you know, it is basically voodoo hoodoo bullshit. It's completely malleable and nothing more than egotistical opinions about how the human mind should work. So they tend towards the left wing of the spectrum. People who have to dig the soil and haul the load and change the oil and change the tire and shit. There is a differential, an established objective differential with regards to political leanings. So maybe it'll work after all. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the majority of truckers in the United States do support Trump in this particular verdict. How many of them are actually willing to deny hauls to New York City and from New York City? I can't tell you. We're going to wait and see. It'll take a while to, I mean, even if 90% of the truckers did it, New York City would still prevail for a few weeks, so it'll take a little while for that damage to be evident. That's about all. Peace out.